Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's webinar, ACT Prep webinar. This time we're going to cover science. My name's Dr. Mary Cook. I'm the ACT Prep Coordinator for Metro Nashville Public Schools. This week's presenter, if you were with us the first week, you will remember her. This is Miss Kelly Spetta. She is a chemistry and science ACT Prep teacher, at Hunters Lane High School. Just a couple of things. At the end, I will have a link for some feedback. We are looking for what it is that you are looking for to help you be as prepared as possible for the ACT coming up in a couple of weeks. And that is for all students in public high schools in Tennessee, not just Metro, but in the entire state of Tennessee. And then as well, this came up in the webinar at 2:30. I emailed out a PDF of a document called Preparing for the ACT. It has a full-length ACT practice test in it. So I sent that out to everybody who got signed up for this webinar prior to this morning. I sent it out probably around 8 a.m. You may need to check your spam folder because I sent it out to over 100 people all at once, and sometimes that automatically filters into your spam folder. So you may want to look at your spam folder to see that. Ms. Spetta does reference several questions out of that PDF. You don't have to have it to be able to participate. Just know that if you want to go back and look at those questions, they are out of that PDF document. So with that, I'm going to turn over the reins to Ms. Spetta, and be sure to participate either in the chat or coming off from mute. And we are here to help you and help you be prepared for the science portion. Ms. Spetta, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dr. Cook. Let me go ahead and get my my iPad going. How are you guys doing today? Y'all tell me in the chat, how's it going? Getting ready for your ACT in 3 weeks? A little less than 3 weeks. I don't know, maybe I'm weird. I'm excited about tests. Maybe that's why I teach ACT. All right, guys, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Kelly Spetta, as Dr. Cook said. I do teach ACT Prep. I've taught ACT Prep for a long time now, since I was 14. I can't believe that's about half my life. So ACT Prep is definitely one of my passions. Also honors chemistry too, so it kind of makes sense that I'm doing the science. All right, so today I'm going to give you 3 different kinds of passages on ACT science. I know that you may not remember, you may not exactly. Oh, by the way, if you guys would like to take notes, please, please, please do so. It will help you out. So if you need time to go grab some paper, pencil, now would be a really good time to do that before we really dive in. So I'm going to talk about the 3 different types of passages on the ACT science. We're going to explain, and I'm going to practice reading graphs and charts with you. The whole science portion is basically just a second reading portion. And I know a lot of you guys were in, I at least recognize a couple of you guys from the webinar last week. So it's just like ACT reading, just adding in some graphs and charts. So I'm also going to build some of your confidence with some tips and tricks, and pretty much, again, like I mentioned, they're going to be really, really closely related to the reading portion. And lastly, I'm going to give you some different resources that you can go to and practice science. Dr. Cook sent out the PDF earlier today. That is an excellent source, and I am going to talk about a few questions in there, but there are so many more that we can practice. So I will give you those close to the end. All right, guys, here you go. Science is 40 questions, and you only have 35 minutes to do it. By the way, I'm going to mark all over my PowerPoint. I want you guys to write all over your ACT. It is so important. The more you write, the better. It will help you, I promise. So that's why I've got my pencil handy. There you go. I got my pencil handy, ready to go. So there's about 6 or 7 passages. I know with reading there were only 4, but science kind of changes sometimes. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, and there's about 4 or 5 questions each. So how do you guys feel about 40 questions, 35 minutes? Feel like that's doable, or is that a little bit nerve-wracking? Doesn't seem too bad. Okay, good. I like that. David's in it. Rowan has joined us. Nice to see you, Rowan. I just asked how everybody feels about the fact that science is 40 questions, 35 minutes. Well, it might make you at least feel better to know that you only need 22 answers correct in order to earn a 23 on science. So that is the college readiness benchmark. I know normally we talk about a 21. 21 is where you start getting the Tennessee Hope Scholarship. So that's why it's really important in Tennessee for a 21. But the college readiness benchmark for science is a 23, and you only need 22 answers correct. So hopefully that makes you feel a little bit better. It's about half the test. I know a lot of you guys have gone to the English, the math, the reading, and now the science. And I'm sure you can probably tell each time you only need about half of the questions correct in order to do well to get your college readiness, college readiness benchmark. All right, so here you go. If you're going to take notes, this is your chance. This is the important thing that I want you to know. And we're going to go through in depth all three of these things. So here's the first passage type. We've got data representation. What do you think of? Oops, so sorry, guys. What do you think of when I say the word data? What do you think of? I want you to put it in the chat if you have access to the chat. What do you think of when I say the word data? Or data? Graphs, good. What else? What else might you see some data in? Tables, perfect. You got it. Graphs, tables, charts, anything like that. Guys, these are the short ones. I know my students prefer the shortest passages because by this point you've taken English, you've taken math, you've taken reading. You're really getting tired. So you're tired of reading for sure. So this is almost like a reprieve. Like it's a little bit easier because these are the short ones. Oops. My bad. All right, the second kind, and then, oh, and by the way, there's about 2 or 3 of these. Remember, there were about 6 or 7 passages. So about 2 or 3 of them are going to be data representation. It's the really short ones. All right, the second kind is going to be research summaries. There's about 3 or 4 of each of these. And we'll go through and I'll show you how to identify each one of these. You may not remember these names like data rep, you may not remember research summaries, but you're going to be able to pick out which ones to focus on and which ones you should not focus so much attention on, knowing you only need about half of them right. But these can be identified with italics. They see things like study 1, experiment 2, things like that. And that's about 3 or 4 of the passages. These are going to be your like medium ones too. I told you data rep is the shortest. Research summaries are somewhere in the middle between data and the last one, which is conflicting viewpoints. Guys, there's only one of these, only one on every single ACT. If you go look back at any of the years, any of the practice tests, there's only ever one conflicting viewpoint. It's going to be a scientist versus a scientist, or student 1, 2, 3, and 4. You may have hypothesis 1, 2, 3, things like that. But either way, a couple people don't disagree on a certain topic, typically a controversial topic. And we got 2 little scientists boxing. Have you guys ever seen any of these kinds of passages before? It's okay if you haven't. Okay, good. Yes. C said yes a few times. I hope that your favorite letter of the day, or I'm sorry, your favorite column of the day is C, I hope. But yeah, that's good. It's good that you've seen these passages. And if you haven't, that's okay. I know a lot of my students will say, but my science teacher never taught me this. It's okay. You don't need to know any science in order to do well on the science portion. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper. Data representation. You guys just told me, and y'all were right. It's going to be graphs, charts, tables, figures, all of that. The questions are going to ask you to interpret the information and draw conclusions from it. And it's very, 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 very few words. So we are actually going to come back to these pictures, but I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So you may have never dealt with Catalyst before, but they give you a whole key. You don't need to have dealt with Catalyst before. They're going to give you temperature. That is something that you guys have heard of before. You know what that is. And they're going to give you a number of cycles. This is just an example, guys. We're going to go through this here in a little bit. I just wanted you to see-ish what a figure might look like. Here are one of the graphs. Here's another figure. Guys, you may have never done this experiment before. In fact, probably none of you have done this experiment, but you can kind of get a feel for what they did. They had some kind of Coke bottle. You guys have all held a Coke bottle before, I'm sure. You have some kind of jar. And then you may not have ever stepped into a chemistry classroom, but you've at least seen these kind of chemistry cups before. They're graduated cylinders, but they drew it out for you. You don't have to have known what happened in this experiment before you came into your ACT. And then finally, a table. It looks really scary at first, but it gives you all the information you could ever need. I know that some of you guys may have never seen this little U-looking thing that I just underlined, but that's okay. They actually tell you exactly what it is down here. They give you all the information you could want. It's basically an open book test in data representation. So I want to dig a little bit deeper. Dr. Cook, can you do the page numbers for this again? It's passage 5.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So, guys, if you have it open, great. If you don't, I'm going to zoom in for you. Hopefully you guys can see. So, I am going to completely skip all of this. I'm putting a box around it, and then I'm going to cross it off. You don't need it. I want to show you exactly what I want you to do. Thank you, Dr. Cook. Appreciate it. Guys, it's page 46. If you want to write it down for future reference, or if you want to pull it up on your screen so that you can zoom as you need to, page 46. There are some key things in here. What are some important things that you see on your screen that you may want to underline or circle? What are some important things? Y'all tell me in the chat. What are we dealing with here? The key. Yes. Oh my gosh, the key is so important. I'm going to put a star by the key. Actually, a couple stars. I like using stars and circling and underlining. I do a bunch of craziness. All right, what else is important? There's 2 more things. Also, I want to make sure that I get your name right. Is it Marin? Did I say that correctly? Perfect. Thank you. All right, what else is important in here? There's 2 more things. X and Y, perfect. Okay, perfect. See, I like it. So I'm going to go a little bit further, and I'm going to say temperature is important. So we're dealing with something with temperature. So if they ask about temperature, we may want to come to this graph. It looks important. Then there's this little A looking thing. You may not know what that is. Does anybody know what that is, just out of curiosity? Have y'all ever seen that little A before? Or know what that is? Sadie said no, and that's okay. That's totally fine. You don't have to know. Does anybody know, just out of curiosity? If not, that's okay. This little A means alpha. You don't have to know that, though. It's okay. It is okay. All right, that was figure 1. So note, this is what I did. I did not read anything from where it says passage 5. I went straight to figure 1. I underlined what I knew was important and put a star by the key. I'm going to do the exact same thing for figure 2. Figure 2. I'm going to put a star by the key. Hey guys, the key is exactly the same as before. What is the difference in these two graphs? What's the one thing they changed? I'll zoom back out. What's the one thing they changed between these two? They did. Perfect. Good. They changed the lines. Okay, so technically they changed two things. So they changed the lines. Perfect. What else did they change? They changed one more thing. What do y'all think? Did they change that alpha? Or is alpha still the same? That little a. I see it right here, right? Yep, I see Sadie's typing to me. Yeah, they changed the x-axis. So in figure 1, they were dealing with temperature. Then they changed something up, and in figure 2, we're dealing with humidity instead. So if they ask you about temperature, you already have it underlined. You know you're going to figure 1. If they ask you about something with percentages, anything like that, you know it's going to be figure 2. It has to be. Humidity, figure 2. So if you're on your real ACT and you do this little bit, the stars, the underlining, takes like a couple seconds so you get the gist of what's happening, and then you go straight to the questions. I don't want you to read anything. I don't want you to read anything. Are you going to read anything? No, you're not going to read anything. Just go to the questions after you've like highlighted and starred what you needed. So let's try a question on it. Based on figure 2, the attenuation coefficient for 1,000 hertz, this looks important. Sound wave at 20 degrees Celsius reaches a minimum. All right, let's stop there. Which figure am I going to go to? Two. Perfect. I'm going to zoom into 2. Based on 1,000 hertz, which of the lines is 1,000 hertz? What does it look like? Yep, it's going to be the top line. Good. It's the solid line. Good. All right, so we're focusing only on like this solid line right here. 1,000 hertz. And hey, Marion, how'd you know that? What did you look at to know? The key. Perfect. Yep, because in my other one I had it starred. We want to know at 20 degrees Celsius, we reach the minimum value. Reaches a minimum value at a relative humidity closest to which of the following? So I'm going to zoom back in. We want to know where it was the lowest. So you guys tell me A, B, C, or D. What do you think? Where did it reach the lowest? A, B, C, or D? Demarius is saying B. Okay. I like that. Anybody else want to contribute? Or y'all can like his or thumbs up. If you agree. All right, let's talk about it. At 25%, I'm right here. That doesn't look like the lowest point to me. In fact, it's still dropping. So it's not going to be 25%. Let's go to 45%. That looks pretty low down there. Looks pretty low to me. Oops. Okay. Let's try 65. I'm not going to cross off 45 because I kind of like it. Let me look at 65. That one looks slightly higher. It's not by much, but it looks slightly higher, doesn't it? It looks higher than the 45. So I'm going to cross that one off. And obviously the 85 would then be higher than that. Yep, looks like it. This one's B, guys. So great job, Demarius. Good work reading those graphs. Very nice. That wasn't that hard, guys, but we had to look at every single word, focusing on every single word. What you got, Dr. Cook?
So yeah, I just wanted to reemphasize what you had said about not needing to read that whole section where it says passage 5 in the top left corner. All of that in there did not help you answer the question. If you had taken the time to read that, you would have spent time on things that would not help you get to the answer and move on to your next questions. So that's one of the things in the reading section. Last week we told you to read everything. In science, it's just the opposite. You need to read everything in the question. You need to read the questions very carefully and annotate them like Miss Spetta did, but you don't need to read that introduction stuff. Matter of fact, if you start doing that, and I found this because I'm doing practice ACT tests myself because I want to experience it just like you do, and I'm doing them under timed conditions. If you read that section, you're going to get overwhelmed, confused, and frustrated. Skip it. Go straight to the questions and start doing the annotation just like Miss Spetta is doing.
Yeah, and being super thorough with those questions. Every single word matters. I promise. They didn't put any extra words in there for fun. Every single word in the question matters, but in the actual passage, it really doesn't. I would rather you guys focus more. Remember, you only have to get about 22 right approximately, so you can still miss 18 questions. That's okay. I'd rather focus on the 22, read those questions all the way, make sure that you're getting them right, focusing on the little details. So let's do this again. Let's do another one. It's still the same. It's still the same graphs and such, but it's a different question. So consider 1,000 hertz sound wave in air at 10% relative humidity. Stop right there. Stop. Don't read anymore. Where did we see relative humidity? Figure 1 or figure 2? Where did we see relative humidity? C is saying 2. I agree. So I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and just focus on just that first sentence. 1,000 hertz, 10% relative humidity. So I'm going to go find that right now. Relative humidity, 10%, and I know I'm at 1,000 hertz. That's right here. Would you guys agree with me? Hopefully so. At how many of the temperatures? Oh no. Oh no. Where did we see temperatures? Didn't we see that in figure 1? We did. At how many temperatures shown in figure 1 does alpha for this wave have a value of 18 dBkm, decibels per kilometer? All right, well, let me go to figure 1. And I'm going to go to 18 decibels per kilometer. Is that the x-axis or the y-axis? 18 decibels per kilometer, X or Y? Marin's saying Y. Okay, I agree. I'm going to put a little dot here on 18. I like my little dots. So I want to know at how many temperatures Does it have a value? Okay, how many temperatures? So it has a value of 18 at this temperature, which is about 5 degrees Celsius. It has another one at 15 degrees Celsius. You guys finish for me. How many temperatures total would have an alpha of 18? How many total temperatures would it have? What do you guys think? I'll show you the answer choices. A, B, C, or D? Y'all with me?
Some of them may not be able to respond in the chat, so you may just want to go ahead and assume that they can't.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to keep doing what I was doing. I was going across on 18, trying to find those temperatures. Here's another temperature. Let's say it's about 70 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to keep going on this. Oh, there's another one at 100 degrees Celsius. I have 4 temperatures here, guys. So it says, at how many of the temperatures shown does it have a value? It's going to be 4. Let's see. It's not too bad. Takes a little bit of work. You got to read the graphs. But like Dr. Cook said, this did not matter. None of these words, we didn't use a single one of these words to answer either of these questions. And remember, there's only about 5 or 6 questions per passage anyways. So we already answered 2 and still didn't read a word. That's fine. Well, obviously we read the question. That was it. All right, so that's data representation. Those were the really short ones. So the second kind is going to be research summaries. So basically, they're going to do some research and then they summarize it. So it's just following the scientific method that you guys learned back in probably kindergarten. You were probably even doing it before kindergarten. You didn't know you were doing it, but you did it. So in these types of questions, you evaluate their method in their experiment, you interpret their results, and then they ask you to understand some of the findings. And these are your medium-sized ones. So it's some words with some passages, some data, some graphs, charts, things like that. So the way that you're going to find these ones, it says something like study 1, study 2, maybe even a study 3. And it's all in italics. I kind of already write in italics. It's like the sideways kind of looking letters. I'm going to write EXP. You might see experiment 1, experiment 2, this kind of thing. You can always pick them out, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And for these research summary, there's about 3 or 4 of these passages total. But it's going to look something like this. You've got a study 1, you've got a study 2, and you've got a study 3. Research summaries will always have this. I want to zoom into these tables, though. I want to see what's important in these tables. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Oh, thank you, Dr. Cook. Thank you. Page 48, guys. For those of you who can't see the chat, it's going to be page 48 in the PDF that Dr. Cook sent earlier today. All right, I want you guys to take a look at table 1 for me. And I want to know what you find important about table 1. What are some important words that you think we should probably highlight in table 1? There's some important words. Well, I don't know if there's something going on in the chat, but we've got percent, we've got fructose, and we've got glucose. We got something about a sweetener and QRSTU. Okay. Let's look at table 2. Ooh, it changed. It's different. It's not percent by mass anymore. It's going to be, it's going to be the amount consumed per rep per day. Do you see that we have the same sweeteners? Q, R, S, T, and U. There's some groups now too, but the sweetener stayed the same. All that changed was the amount consumed. All right, so what's important about table 3? You guys tell me what is important about table 3. What changed? What are we focusing on now in table 3? I know we're having some weirdness going on with the chat. I see it. So in this one, I know during the 2:30 webinar, the student said concentration per sample. But I want to specifically note that it is the leptin concentration per sample. That's the only thing that really changed from table 2 to table 3. And then table 4 is the ghrelin concentration per sample. So if in number 3 you had just underlined concentration per sample, it would have had to change for table 4 because now we have 2 different kinds. So, Dr. Cook, will you try to send something in the chat for me, please? It works. Okay. All right. So if we were asking about the amount consumed per day, which table would you go to? Like just the total amount. Which table would you go to? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Sadie's saying 2. I agree. That's the amount consumed per rep per day. That's right. Absolutely. So speaking of that, let's look at a question about it. Yes, thank you, Sadie. All right, suppose that a sweetener composed of 46% fructose. Ooh, I know I saw that somewhere. 46% fructose and 54% glucose by mass had been studied in had been tested in study 1. Stop what you're doing. 46% fructose, 54% glucose. Where did we see that? Table 1, 2, 3, or 4? We saw fructose and glucose in one of the tables. Well, we saw it in table 1. I know. Thank you, Dr. Cook. 46% fructose. I'm going to write that over here because I'm going to zoom in. Fructose, and then we got 54% glucose. All right, so we didn't have those exact numbers. We had 42 and 50 for fructose. So we had 42 and 50. Well, I know that 46 is right there in the middle. And we had 58 and 50. So I know that 54 is right there in the middle as well between those two. So the sweeteners, well, there it was right smack dab in the middle of between sweetener R and sweetener S. So that's the first thing. I'm in one sentence in and I know that I'm going to be somewhere between sweetener R and sweetener S. I haven't even read the question all the way. I just wanted to pause because if you don't, you might get overwhelmed with how much you have to do. So focus on a little bit at a time. So we're between sweetener R and S. Let's keep going. Based on table 1, which we just figured out, and the results of study 3. Study 3 was table 4. The Ghrelin concentration per sample would have been what? Well, we were between sweeteners R and S. Sam is already on it. Sam's killing it. But I'm going to make sure Sam is right. So we were between R and S. So the Ghrelin or the Ghrelin concentration would also be between these two numbers. And just like Sam said, look, those two numbers are in H. H is correct. Very good. Yes, thank you, Sam. Appreciate it. Good work. I like it. Guys, these questions are not that hard. It does take multiple steps, though. So you have to keep your focus. I know by this point in your ACT, you're getting tired. You're like, I don't want to take this anymore. No. But you have to power through focusing on every single word of these questions. I would rather you take your time and get them right rather than rushing through. All right, I got one more. Yep, so for those of you who can't see the chat, the challenge is definitely picking apart the questions, following, like you have to stop after every couple words and be like, wait, we got to make sure that we're keeping everything going in a straight line. So number 39, it's still the same tables and such. Consider the sweetener that resulted in a solid food consumption. Where did we see that? Which study did we find a solid food consumption per rat per day? Which table? Yep, Sam is saying, absolutely. Sam is saying that we found that in table 2, right? So 16 grams per rat of solid food. Which sweetener was that? Q, R, S, T, or U? So solid food is what we're looking for. Solid food, 16 grams. I'll go find it. It's going to be right here. So if I scroll on over, that's going to be sweetener S. Whatever we're dealing with, I know it's going to have to be something to do with sweetener S. Based on table 1, okay, we're going to table 1. And I know we're dealing with S. So I'm going to go to table 1 and go to S. Put a little dot by it. It says how many grams of fructose would be present in 200 grams of this sweetener. So they're going to give you 200 grams total. I'm going to zoom back into table 1. For S, it's 50% fructose and 50% glucose. So how many grams of fructose would we have? A, B, C, or D? Sam is saying 200. Okay. Got any other takers? Sadie's typing. No question mark. Oh, Sam's like, oh, wait. Yeah, guys, it's going to be B. Oops. So sorry. It's going to be B because we had 200 grams total, and 50% of that is going to be fructose. 50% is going to be glucose. So 50% of 200, it is B. It's 100 grams. Yep, you got it. So no question mark, Sadie. Don't doubt yourself. You got this. You got it right. Trust your gut every time. That's so important in the ACT. Trust your gut. All right. Excuse me. So the last one is going to be conflicting viewpoints. The last type of passage. We did data representation, which are the really short ones. Then we did research summaries. That was the second one. Those are like kind of like the middle grade ones, where they're going to be a little bit longer, but still not the hardest. In my opinion, conflicting viewpoints is the absolute hardest. There's only one of them on the whole test. Out of the 6 or 7 passages, there's only going to be one of these. Only one. So it presents like, so in this one, you're going to see 2 to 4 statements that you got some kind of controversial scientific question. So they want you to evaluate the arguments of each person, identify where they're disagreeing, and you're supposed to recognize the evidence that each one is citing. You don't have to decide who is right, but I want to note it is usually the longest passage. There's not a lot of it's very rare to see charts, figures, graphs on this kind of question. And remember, I already told you don't read anything, right? You're not supposed to read anything. So if you see something like this, should you spend time to read all of this? What do you think? Should you spend some time to read all of this? I'm going to say no. There's only one of these passages in this whole thing. It's going to be about 5 questions. I would rather, and I'm with Dr. Cook, I would rather you spend your time just bubble in your bubble of the day or your column of the day and move on. Because you only need 22 questions right. It's not worth all of that time to read all of this and answer all the questions for 5 questions. When you could spend more time on something like this that may take a little bit more time, but you know you're going to get it right and you don't have to read a whole lot. Oops, sorry guys. The iPad hates me.
Once you get through those simpler problems to figure out the ones that are the charts and the graphs, if you have time and can come back to the conflicting viewpoints, do that. But we want you to get through as many questions quickly that you can get correct and not get caught up in some of these that you might have to go back and forth and spend a lot of time. Remember, you have 40 questions, 35 minutes. That's less than 1 minute per question. So if you're using a whole bunch of time to do this conflicting viewpoints, then that means you have less time on those problems that you can just look at a chart and graph and find those answers relatively quickly. That's why we're telling you the bubble of the day. It's not that we don't want you to get the 36 on the science. If that's what you're aiming for, great. But go after those quick points first. Come back to the ones that are going to take you a little bit longer after you get to those quick points.
Correct. Thank you, Dr. Cook. That's perfect. Very well worded. That's exactly right, guys. So if you are starting to run out of time, you don't really have a whole lot of time, what answer are you going to put for this question? I'm not even going to zoom in. What are you going to put? Sam, Sadie, what do y'all think? What are you going to put? I'm going to tell you my letter of the day is always C for chemistry, because I don't know if you guys remember, I teach honors chemistry too. So of course I'm going to pick C and I'm going to move on. Pick your bubble of the day, be consistent with your bubble of the day and roll with it. Just move on. I would rather you spend more time elsewhere. Same thing here. I would rather you spend more time elsewhere. All right, let's get into a couple of the strategies. Those were the 3 types of passages. So remember, there's a couple of the data representation. That's the short one. Then you've got the research summaries, and finally the conflicting viewpoints. It should be pretty easy to pick those out now that you've seen them. So contradictions is going to be the first strategy, which, by the way, you guys had in reading. You're right. This ACT Science is basically just another reading test, but all you're doing is adding that data. You're adding graphs, charts, things like that. So you can use those reading strategies, but we just gave you some for science as well. You're not really reading anything but those graphs and charts. So a lot of the answer choices, though, are going to be directly contradicted. So go ahead and eliminate those answers. I'm sure that you guys have met Poe by now. Process of elimination. I know you've met Poe. Poe is all of our best friends. So if there are answer choices, if you're in doubt, if it is directly contradicting what the passage says, go ahead and cross it off. You don't need it. So I would rather you focus on eliminating those choices rather than trying to understand. It's okay if you don't understand all of the science. You don't have to know science to do well in order to do well on the science portion. Just use your process of elimination. You can do it. My second strategy for you is my favorite, probably, because it's kind of what I've been saying this whole time. Use your figures. The majority of the questions on this test do not require you to read anything. I didn't read anything so far on all of these questions that we've done together, and we still got them right. So you're going to look at the questions instead that, like I picked out a few for you that said, go to figure 1, go to figure whatever. But I want you to look for those questions that just require you to look for those data and answer those questions first. But I want to practice just a little bit with you first. So I showed you this one earlier. There are 3 elements here. Actually, there's some things that I showed you guys how to do. What is important here in this graph? What is important? What are some things that I need to underline or circle? Key, absolutely, always. What else? I see this is dealing with iron and it's dealing with zinc too. Yep. Oh, nickel. There's something with nickel. Yes, nickel concentration. Perfect. Good, Dr. Cook, you're killing it. Fantastic. And then also the y-axis. I know somebody earlier said something about x and y-axis. Yes, go ahead and underline it. Might as well. This is going to be the average iron or zinc content, which, remember, there was iron and zinc in here. So now that we've done that, let's answer a question about it. So according to figure 1, which is right here, as nickel concentration increases, the average iron concentration of species M, iron M, iron and M. What does the line look like? Is it going to be a square or a triangle? Is it going to be filled in? A filled in square, an open square, a filled in triangle, or an open triangle? Thank you, Dr. Cook. I love it. I'm going to pretend that we filled in. There you go. All right. So it's going to be this one filled in. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and fill these guys in. This goes down to here, which then goes down to here. And then it goes down again to here. Your answer here should be decreased only. This time I didn't even show you the passage. You didn't need it. You have no idea what was going on in the passage, and that's okay, as long as you can read the graph. Let's try another one. Oops. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, just like Sadie said, the key is important, and I really like this key because it has a star on it. Makes me happy. Oops. Okay. So there's some catalyst. You guys may have never dealt with the catalyst. That is okay. We're dealing with some kind of temperature thing, and we're dealing with some kind of number of cycles. Let's answer a question. We're only going to focus on question 22, so don't worry about 21. In experiment 1, 26 cycles. Oh, I know that I just underlined cycles. So I'm going to go pick out 26 cycles. I just put a little red line there. 26 cycles were needed to complete the reaction at 450 degrees Celsius. Oh, I know that I just dealt with temperature too. So 450 degrees Celsius. And we want to know which catalyst it was. So I'm going to scroll this guy over. I'm going to scroll. And then I'm going to put this one. I'm going to connect them right here. It's in a filled in triangle. Well, unfortunately, none of the answers say filled in triangle. So I'm going to have to look at the key at which one was a filled in triangle. And I see that one is catalyst X. That one's going to be G. Now that I've looked at that, I'm looking at 21 really fast. And we can answer 21 really fast. According to the results of experiment 1, I know I already colored on it, but we can still read it. For any given catalyst, any of these, temperature was increased. What happens to the number of cycles? Well, it looks like all of these guys are going up. Every time, all of them are going up. So this one is going to be increased only. Oops, I accidentally answered 2. All right, here's the last one. My last question with you. So the important things, I know we've got some time. That's going to be important. I've got some voltage. That's going to be important. Sadie, talking to you. We got experiment 1. The time constant required for the voltage across the capacitor reached 7.6 volts. So I'm going to write that over here, 7.6 volts. But we didn't do 7.6 volts, but we know that it's right here between these two. So Sadie, come back to me. What would be the time constant? F, G, H, or J? Perfect. You got it. Guys, these are real ACT questions, I promise. You can do it, I know it. So to help, you can do it as long as you follow your road signs. Yay! I know, I love it. So we've already talked about it. You guys know what to do. Literally follow every single word in the question. You can do it. It's literally road signs. They're going to tell you where to go and what to do. You got to follow them. So I did want to put this up for a minute. Dr. Cook, I know it's time. But just for everybody, like if you guys need to take a picture or whatever, Mastery Prep in Schoology is really fantastic for those of you who are in MNPS. Mastery Prep covers a whole lot of science. There are a lot of lessons in the study hall, so please go check that out. There's also all of the links to all the webinars are on the MNPS ACT website, and the link is here, mnps.org/ACT. There's a bunch of things on there, guys, to help. So, Dr. Cook, I will turn it back over to you and leave this slide up for a minute.
Great. Yes. Thank you for doing that. And yes, in all the webinars, in addition to the YouTube channel, if you go to that ACT page on the Metro site, they're actually posted right there on the ACT page, right at the top. So if you missed any of the previous topics, you can go back and watch those. If you want to review any of the questions that Ms. Spetta did today on the science, because I saw some of you must have been having some types of internet challenges because you were popping in and out. If you missed something, you can rewatch this webinar as well. So yes, and it doesn't even matter if you're in Metro or not, you can get to the ACT website. If you're not in Metro, the Mastery Prep is not accessible to you. That's only for Metro students. But all those rest of those resources, they're on our public website, so anybody can get to them. I've put into the chat the link to the feedback form. We would love to hear from you. We do have 2 more weeks of webinars coming up. Next week, we're going to talk about some pretest items that you have to do. If you're going you have to do them prior to the ACT on March 1st. And again, that doesn't matter if you're in Metro or any other public high school in the state of Tennessee. There's some things that you need to complete. We're going to walk through those. And then the final week, we're going to go through things like, and it's some of the things that you guys have brought up in this form. What do I need to bring? How do I need to prepare just for the day? Not just in the subject areas, but just for the day. What do I need to do for that? And that's what that last webinar is going to cover. But other than that, Ms. Spetta, thank you so much for covering science. The rest of you, thank you for coming and joining us today. We really do appreciate it. Please do take a couple of minutes to complete that form. If you have any questions, we're going to hang out here for a few minutes. You're welcome to come off from mute or put your questions in the chat. But other than that, you're welcome to go on and live the rest of your day. We do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a great day.